everyone. Thanks for joining me for the Chicken and Mittens program. So even though we don't have any snow on the ground right now, I hope that you still had a lot of fun reading our silly story all about Zoey and Sam's imaginative winter adventure. If you liked our story, we do have other books featuring Zoey and Sam by Adam Lehrhaupt in our early reader section. And you can always take a look in the online catalog or come and visit us at the Indian Trails Library Kids Desk. We're more than happy to help you find those books or maybe even some true information about chickens or pigs or any other animals that you're interested in. So if you picked up your activity kit at the Indian Trails Library, you've got most of the supplies that you'll need for our projects today. You'll also want to grab scissors, glue stick, tape, some crayons, colored pencils, markers, whatever decorating supplies you have at home. And then we will be doing some painting today. So I have a little plastic paint palette, so I've got some water in there, and I've got that resting on a paper towel, so I can use that with our watercolors. If you have like a small cup or bowl that you can use, fill that with just a little bit of water. We'll use that for our first project. And then I've also got some paper laid down, and of course my apron on to protect my clothes, just in case. So get your workstation set up, make sure that you've got all of your supplies ready to go, and we'll jump into our first project. Since mittens were such a big part of our story, I thought we should start out with a mitten-themed craft. So we are going to make a watercolor resist mitten garland, which means that we'll need one of the pieces of plain white paper, the watercolors, so you've got a paint set and then a paintbrush, the white crayon, and small piece of yarn. Mine's kind of like a aquamarine color, but this is part of a variegated yarn ball, so yours might be more of a blue or a yellow color, but this is going to be the shorter piece of yarn from your kit. So to start out with, we are going to use our white crayon to draw on our white piece of paper, which might sound counterintuitive because if you tried that before, you know that you really can't see. There's no contrast between the color of the crayon and the color of your paper. But once we add a little bit of watercolor paint over the white crayon, that's going to make our drawings pop, and then we'll be able to feature them in our garland. So I'm going to start out with a pencil, and you can use pencil, pen, crayon, whatever you have on hand. And I am going to trace my hand on the paper. So you can see I've got my hand kind of like it would be if I was wearing a mitten, my thumb sticking out to the side, and then my fingers all together. So I'm going to trace around that to get a mitten shape. All right, and then I'm going to turn my paper and see if I can trace that shape 3 more times. So that's going to be 2. And then I'm going to try to do it here. It's going to be a little tight fit. 3. And that last one's going to be a little small. All right, so once you have your mitten shapes traced out on your paper, then we can take our white crayon and we can draw some designs. So you can make this as simple as you want. Maybe just draw some shapes, circles, squares, stars. You can write your name, or you can actually draw a picture, maybe a winter scene or something else that feels kind of seasonal to you on our mittens. So I'm going to do just a few lines on one of them. It's going to be a striped mitten. I'm going to draw some circles on this one. So that's going to be kind of a polka dot pattern. For this one, I'm going to draw some stars. So that's kind of a fun thing to do in the winter. Go out actually pretty early in the evening, take a look up at the sky and be able to see a lot of stars. And then I think for my last one, I'm just going to draw some wavy lines. All right. So if I hold that up for you, can you see the white crayon on there? No, it's almost invisible, right? So now we've got to add some watercolor to our paper to make that crayon show up. So I'm going to start out dipping my brush into one of my clean pools of water, and then I'm going to choose one of the colors. I'm going to start with a nice purple. So dip my brush in that color on my watercolors, and then I'm going to start adding that to my paper. And as I start painting, you'll see the design that I made with the white crayon will start to show. We will be cutting the mittens out of our paper once they dry. So if your painting is not 100% exact, if you don't completely stay in the lines, that is totally okay. So we'll keep going until we've got a nice coat of paint on our mitten. And if you want to add different colors in, feel free to do that. Just make sure that you clean your brush by dipping it in water and maybe even onto your, like a piece of paper towel or napkin to clean off your brush in between colors so that they don't all completely run together. All right. So that's my first one. So if you take a look, you can see that those wavy lines are starting to show in that mitten design. I think for my next one, I'm going to choose blue. So I'll clean off my brush and then get some more paint on there. So I'm going to do the same thing, just add some watercolor paint. And I'm trying to keep the color pretty bright and vibrant because that's going to help the design that I made with my white crayon show up even more. Now, if you want to use a lighter color like orange or yellow, that's totally fine. Just know that your design may not show up as strongly, clearly as it would if you used a darker color. All right, so I've got this one almost all painted. Add just a little bit more color on here. And you can see I'm trying to stick pretty close to the lines, but if my paint goes outside, I'm not going to be too worried about it. All right, so this one I feel like you can see even more that contrast there, right? That looks pretty cool. So go ahead and finish painting, add color to the rest of your mittens. So all 4 of them are going to be painted. And then because our paint's going to need some time to dry, we're going to set this off to the side. We're going to clean our brush. Nice. There we go. So you can see my colors coming out clear now. So I got the paint out of my brush. I'm going to dry it off a little bit. And then I'm going to pour out my water, close up my paint set, and set all of that off to the side. We'll come back at the end of our video, we'll cut out the mittens, and then we'll add them to the yarn to create the garland. So get your space cleaned up, make sure that your painting is drying off to the side, and then we'll get ready for our second project. In our story, Sam is a very loyal friend who always has Zoe's back, even if sometimes her ideas seem a little goofy to start with. So our next project is going to be a little bit easier craft. We're going to make a paper pig, and this is, of course, in honor of Sam. So you're going to need your pig template, glue stick, and then inside your Ziploc bag, you have some pink strips of confetti. So you've got a couple of different options for how you can attempt this project. So the way that I made my pig is I put glue down on the paper, and then I took a piece of the tissue paper and I scrunched it up into a little ball and then glued it down. You can also try tearing it if you want to, make it into smaller pieces that way and glue it down, or you can just do one whole sheet of tissue paper and then glue it down flat to cover it. If you want to also cover Sam's nose with tissue paper, you're more than welcome to do that. I decided that I wanted to add crayon in the middle there, just so that gives a little bit of contrast between the 3D texture of the rest of the face, and then the nose kind of stands out a little bit more because it's just got the crayon on it. So make sure that you can still see Sam's eyes and smile. And then once you're done, if you have some extra construction paper at home, you can always glue this onto a larger sheet of paper and then maybe add something in the background. Maybe Sam has something that he wants to tell Zoe, or he's going on another adventure, who knows? Or you can always add this onto like a straw or a craft stick if you wanted to make something that you can actually hold up and move around to play with later. So either way, you want to make sure that you put your name on the back, sign your work, and then I would also suggest setting this one off to the side for a little bit. Since we're adding a lot of glue to the paper, it might need some time to dry, and then that way you can make sure that your tissue paper isn't going to fall off when you take your puppet out to play with it. So I'm going to set my glue to the side, I'm going to set my paper to the side, clean up any scraps of tissue paper that might be lingering on my workstation, and then we'll get our supplies ready for our next project. We made a paper pig in honor of Sam, so now we're going to make a chicken in honor of Zoe, the star of Chicken and Mittens. And for this one, we're going to need the envelope from your supply kit. You'll want to have tape and your glue stick. Probably want to have scissors on hand, and then your crayons, colored pencils, or markers nearby just in case you want to do a little bit of decorating. So let's open up our envelope here, and we'll take a look and see what we have. All right, so we have a piece of orange paper, 2 white ovals, we have some Google eyes, and then some yellow yarn. So this is what we're going to use to make our chicken. So I'm going to start out with my glue stick. If you would rather put your 2 pieces of white paper together with tape, that's totally a choice, but I feel like the glue stick is going to work a little bit better. So I'm just going to add some glue around the edge and then fill in the middle here. And I'm going to put my 2 ovals together. All right, so I matched those up. Make sure that they're firmly stuck together. Okay, so that's going to give us 1 oval, and now the paper is a little bit thicker and a little bit stronger, so it's going to work better for our project. So find one end of your yellow yarn, and then I would suggest taking a piece of tape, attaching it to the end of your yarn, and then putting that onto your oval. So the reason that we're doing this is because we're going to wrap the yarn all around the oval to cover it, but this will make sure that the end stays in place. So if we're pulling on the yarn a little bit while we start to do our wrapping, it's not all of a sudden going to come flying off and then you'll have to start over, because I've done that before and I can tell you it's a bummer. All right, so we've got our yarn stuck on part of the oval. I put mine kind of towards the bottom of it. And then I'm going to hold my oval in one hand and I'm just going to start wrapping the yarn around. So it's going to go from side to side I'm going to cover it in the middle, and then I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to have it go the other way. And we're just going to keep, wrapping our yarn. That direction change is a little bit hard, isn't it? Hold it with my finger here and see. There we go. So our goal is just to cover as much of the oval as we can with our yarn. That's going to give us the yellow background for our chicken. So I'm just turning my oval every so often so my yarn is getting wrapped in a bunch of different directions. We can start to see that yellow color show a little bit more. All right, so now I've come to the other end of my yarn. So I'm going to wrap it as far as it will go. So I've got just that little end peeking out right there. I'm going to take another piece of tape. I'm going to attach it. There we go. To the end of my yarn, and then I'm going to wrap that over. Okay, so both ends of my yarn are held in place, and I have a nice yellow circle. So that is going to be the first part of our chicken. So what else does our chicken need? A face, right? So for this next part, I'm going to take my orange piece of paper, my scissors, and I'm going to cut a small rectangle out of my orange paper. All right, so we are going to make a beak. There's two different approaches to this. You can just cut out a triangle and then put that on to be a beak. If you want to get a little bit fancier, you can take your rectangle of paper and fold it in half. All right, so you can see it already kind of looks a little bit like a mouth, right? And then I'm going to hold the end that's folded towards me. I'm going to use my scissors to cut from edge to edge to make a triangle shape. There we go. So this would be the other choice, so then you can make sure that the bottom gets glued or taped down. The top part is going to be free, so it's going to look like your chicken has their beak open. Maybe they've got something important to say, or maybe they're just saying hi. I don't know. So those are our two mouth options. And then we've also got to add in some eyes. So adhesive is going to be your choice here. I'm going to use tape because I think that's a little bit easier to get the tape to stick to the yarn. But if you have a glue stick or if you have some white school glue at home that you want to use instead, that is totally up to you. But I think I'm going to try to keep this as least amount of sticky as possible. So I've got my piece of tape, and then I'm going to take my beak and I'm just going to tape down that bottom piece right there. So the top is still free, but the bottom is taped down to my yarn. All right, so that's the first part. Now we've got to add some eyes. So this may be something that you want to have a grown-up or an older sibling help with, because technically our eyes are sticker backs. It can just be a little tough to get the sticker to peel off. So if you can catch the edge, you can get the sticker back to peel off, and then you can just go ahead and stick that right on to your chicken. Or you can, again, use some taper glue. So if you use a glue stick, you can just go ahead and put the glue right onto the back of the eye and then stick it down. I am going to use some tape again. I'm going to make a little roll of tape, and then I'm going to cut it in half. And I'm just going to put that little roll on the back. And I'm trying to find a spot that is more paper than yarn. Let's see if I can make this even here. There we go. All right, so now my chicken has some eyes, and then I'm going to add some feet. So I'll come back to that orange square of paper. I'm going to cut another rectangle out. I'm going to fold mine in half like this so that I can just cut one time and get 2 feet. Now you can just use your scissors to cut out the shape if you're feeling pretty confident about it, or you can draw. So I'm going to draw a rectangle, and then I'm going to draw a triangle at the bottom to be my foot. You could make this a little bit more like an actual chicken's foot, and you can draw a rectangle and then add 3 more rectangles like that. Either way, it's going to work out really well. So now I'm going to cut along my lines to make my 2 legs and feet. Cut straight down and then around triangle shape. And then back up to the other side. Now since I've folded my paper in half, I have 2 connected pieces. So I'm just going to cut right here in the middle on that seam and flip it over. So you can't see the pencil now, and I've got my 2 feet. So I'm going to lay those out, match that up with the bottom, and then I'm just going to add some tape. Flip my chicken over, tape this onto the back. So think about that for a second. There we go. So I'm going to tape this on pretty close to the bottom so that the legs and feet will stick out from my chicken's body. There we go. Now if you have some yellow or maybe even some white paper at home and you want to cut out some wings, that would be another thing that you could add to it. You can always use your crayons or colored pencils to draw on the legs, or maybe add a speech bubble or something like that. So I'm pretty happy with the way that this looks. I feel like my chicken is done. So I'm going to say, you're adorable, Zoe. Set my project off to the side, get my workstation cleaned up, and then we'll meet back for our final project. On a snowy day, it can be a lot of fun to head outside and have a wintry adventure, just like Zoey and Sam did, right? But it can also be really nice to come back inside, take off all of your wet clothes and your wet boots, find a nice cozy spot to snuggle up, and enjoy a warm mug of hot chocolate. So that's going to be our final project today. So for this one, you're going to need your Ziploc bag, and then 3 sheets of paper. So we've got a plain white piece of paper, brown piece of paper, and then your red mug. We're also going to need a glue stick, scissors. You'll want to have your crayons, colored pencils, markers. Keep your tape on hand just in case. And then you are going to need a little bit of help from a grown-up or maybe an older sibling once we get towards the end of this project. So our first step is going to be to decorate our mug. Now, the end result of this is going to be to have the center of the mug cut out, and we're actually going to use the Ziploc bag along with the paper to make it look like you can see inside the mug, to the hot chocolate and marshmallows that are in the cup. So whatever decoration you add around the sides and on the handle here is going to show in your final project. If you decorate a lot in the middle, that is not going to be visible once we cut that section out. So just keep that in mind. So I think I'm going to choose my blue crayon. That's my favorite color. I'm going to add some dots along here. I do like polka dots. And then I think I'm going to add some other colors, maybe bring back that snowflake design that I did before with my mitten. And then I think I'm going to add some purple. And then maybe black. We'll add a couple more snowflakes. So you can see again, I'm choosing some darker colors here. If you want to use like yellow, orange, feel free to. Just know that they may not show up quite as brightly as a darker color would. All right, so I feel good around my decoration. I think my mug is ready to go. So I'm gonna grab my scissors and I'm gonna cut around this outside edge. So I'm gonna go around the mug, and then I'm also gonna make sure that I cut around the handle so that that stays attached. Now, a lot of people really enjoy a cup of hot chocolate or hot cocoa on a winter day. Some people also like to drink tea or chai. Maybe they even like to have some warm apple cider. It can taste really good. All right, I'm coming up to my handle here, so I'm going to make sure that I cut around that. And you can always add a lot of different stuff into your hot chocolate or hot cocoa. Sometimes people like to add marshmallows or peppermint, cinnamon, all those yummy different flavors, right? There you go. So my mug is all set. So I'm going to put that here on my scrap paper. All right. So for the next step, I am going to empty out my Ziploc bag. So I want to hold on to my cotton balls here. If you have any pieces of pink tissue paper left over like I do, you want to find another place to store those. So I'm going to set those carefully to the side here. All right, so I have an empty Ziploc bag. I have my brown paper and my cotton balls. So this is what we're going to use to make our hot cocoa. So I'm going to start out with my brown paper, and I'm going to use my fingers to tear it into pieces. So you can take two pieces together, tear it up at the same time. The size of your pieces of paper is going to be up to you. If you really get into tearing and you want to make them super teeny tiny, that's okay. You want to keep them a little bit bigger, maybe your fingers get a little tired, that's okay too. I'm keeping mine to be about, maybe about an inch, half inch, square or rectangle shape. So I'm going to go ahead and do my full piece of brown paper. So I can fill up my mug with some yummy hot chocolate. All right, a little more here. All right, so I have my brown paper. And then I'm going to take my cotton balls and I'm going to start pulling those in half. So I've got part of my cotton ball and then I'm just going to put it into the palm of my hand. I'm going to roll, 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 roll so that it looks more like a little ball. And again, you can make these as big or as small as you want to. And you can add as many pretend marshmallows to your hot chocolate as you'd like. I really like the Dandy's marshmallows. I think those are really yummy. So I'm going to add a bunch because I think that's going to make my hot chocolate taste really sweet. And really delicious. All right, so I'll do one more here. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 marshmallows. I think that sounds pretty good, right? So now we're going to add our paper pieces and our pretend marshmallows into our Ziploc bag. So you can kind of scrunch your paper up a little bit when you put it in, if you want to, like that. Or you can just take your pieces and lay them in flat. So we want to try to fill the bag. So depending on what size your pieces of paper are, you may need more or less than I'm adding. You can see I'm trying to keep my bag relatively flat so that I can try to cover as much of it with paper as possible. All right, so once I get my paper scraps in there, add just a little bit more. Spread that out just a little. Now I'm going to add my marshmallows on top. I'm just going to pop those in. Again, trying to kind of hold my bag still. All right, now this is the tricky part. So we've got to take our bag, smush everything down, and then make sure that you get your zip to close. All right, I'm going to get rid of my extra papers here. Okay, so I have my white piece of paper, that's going to be my background, my Ziploc bag, that's going to be my cocoa, and then I have my mug all set to go. Now our next step is going to be putting our Ziploc bag over our mug. Now we want to make sure that we leave enough paper in the center for the Ziploc bag to have something to attach to. So I'm going to take my bag and I'm going to fold it over just a little bit so that when I trace around it, it's going to make a little bit smaller size. So I'll put this up here so you can see what I mean. So I took my Ziploc bag and I just folded it over a little bit so the shape that I'm going to trace is going to be smaller than the actual size of my bag. So I'll make sure that I'm able to stick it to the paper mug that I have, that the two will be able to stick together, right? So I'm going to flip this over here. And then I'm going to use a pencil, but you can use whatever you have on hand, and I'm going to trace around it. All four sides. All right, so that's going to give me kind of a roughly square shape in the center. So this is the part that I think you are going to need some help from a grown-up. You're more than welcome to try it yourself, but an adult or maybe an older sibling might be able to help you cut the center out just a little bit more easily. So the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to fold my paper in half, and then I'm going to use the lines that I traced as a guide to cut out a square shape in the center of my mug. So I'm going to hold my paper in one hand, and then I'm going to cut around all four edges. And the shape that I traced was just kind of a rough outline. So I don't have to follow it exactly while I'm cutting, but it gives me an idea of the size that I need to cut out in my project. All right, so I have a red square I'll set off to the side, and then I have my mug. It's missing its middle. So I'm going to flip this over again. So this is the side that I did not decorate, the plain side. I'm going to match up my Ziploc bag to my mug so you can see it actually fit pretty well, didn't it? So I've got enough paper up at the top that the top of the Ziploc can be affixed to it, and then the rest of it you'll be able to see through the paper. So I'm going to use tape for this again because I feel like that's going to give me the strongest hold. You are more than welcome to use your glue stick or even white school glue if you have it. Stapler would also work if you have a stapler at home, but that would definitely be something to have your adult or older sibling to help with. So I've got one piece of tape there. I'm going to add a second piece of tape up at the top just to hold that part nice and firm. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of tape on the side. So I'm just going to do one side here, taping the bag down, also to the table, I guess. All right, so I'm taping the side of the bag to the side of my paper mug just to give it a little bit something extra to hold on to. There we go. All right. So I've got 3 sides taped down: the top, the left side, and the right side. So I'm going to go back with my scissors since I was a little wild with my tape here. I'm just going to cut around the edge to get some of that extra tape off so that doesn't show. You can also just kind of fold it down over the paper if you'd rather do that. All right. So I think we are looking pretty good. So now when I hold up my mug, you can see the brown paper in it. That's where my marshmallows are, so I might need to kind of scrunch it up inside the bag a little bit so you can see those marshmallows a little bit more clearly. Mix it up. All right. So for the end of this project, again, you've got a couple different options. You can leave your project just like this if you feel like this works the best. You can see from both sides your yummy cocoa creation. You can even add a little bit more decoration now that your project is almost finished. And of course, I'm going to put my name on here because I want everybody to know this is my project. The other option would be to take your extra piece of white paper and to use that as a background. And then you can use either your tape or your glue to put your mug on the background paper. So the benefit to this is that it's going to make your project a little bit stronger. So instead of having just the one piece of paper and the bag together, if you add another piece of paper onto the background, it's going to be a little bit firmer and a little bit stronger. So that last step is kind of up to you, the way that you want to finally present your project. So either way, I think it's going to look super delicious and warm you up on those cold winter days, right? So let's set that one down because you remember that we've got to come back to our mitten garland, right? So take a look at your paper and see, has your paint dried? Oh, I think mine's doing pretty well. And you can see now that the paint's had a chance to dry. I don't know, these wavy lines really didn't turn out very well, but I feel like my other ones, my straight lines, my circles, and my snowflake shapes are really clear against my paint. That looks pretty cool. So now I'm going to use my scissors to cut out my mitten shapes. So again, we've got that nice pencil line all around, so you can use that as your guide. Once we're done cutting our shapes out, we are going to add them onto our other piece of yarn to create a garland. And what that means is a string with some special shapes hanging from it, and that's a decoration that people use sometimes in their house, outside their house, to decorate for a season or for a holiday. So ours is going to be a really cool winter mitten decoration. Now you may not know this, but this also kind of goes along with something special that we're doing at the library right now called winter reading. And our theme for winter reading this year is get your mitts, like mittens, on a good book. So all right, my battery cut out there for a minute, but it looks like we are back up and running. So when I told Miss Lori that we were going to read Chicken and Mittens for December, and that we were going to be making a mitten craft, she was really excited because that goes right along with our winter reading theme. So you can sign up online through Beanstack, or you can come into the library to register and get your reading log. And this year we're going to read for 15 days. So if you're spending time reading over winter break, maybe you're reading Chicken and Mittens or one of the other books by Adam Lehrhaupt, all of that is going to count. And when you finish your reading log and bring it back to us in January, you'll be able to get a prize book, which is a pretty awesome thing. So I hope that if you haven't signed up for winter reading yet, you'll think about it. And if you have signed up, good luck on your reading, and make sure that you bring your log back in January to be able to get your book. All right, so now that we've got our mittens cut out, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 ready to go. I am going to flip them over. And then I'm going to attach them to my yarn. So when you are laying this out, you want to think about how far apart you want your mittens to be. So I'm spacing mine out a little bit, so there's like a couple inches in between each of them. And again, our theme for today, right? I'm going to use some tape. You are more than welcome to use glue or school glue, but I want to make sure that my mittens are very well adhered to my yarn, so they are not going to go anywhere. So I'm adding a piece of tape onto the back of my mitten, and then I'm pressing it down nice and firm to make sure that it is capturing both the yarn and the paper of the mitten, so they will stay together. All right. So I have a piece of tape on the back of each of my mittens holding them onto the yarn. So now when I pick my yarn up, you can see I have my garland. Now, if you have more paper at home and you want to create some more mittens, you can do the same process that we did at the beginning of the video. You can color on them with your white crayon, make whatever design you want, paint over it with your watercolors, and then once they're dry, you can cut out maybe a mitten shape, or maybe there's another shape that you want to add to your garland. Get creative, and then when your garland is complete, you can find a special place to hang it up. So maybe you've got a spot on your refrigerator where that can go. Maybe your grown-up can help you hang it up in your room or in a window. And then this will be a reminder that even though sometimes it gets really cold and snowy and windy outside in the winter, we bundle up and we spend time with a good friend or a family member, that can make our winter days that much warmer and brighter and help us look forward to spring. All right, so I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to say thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you had a lot of fun reading our story, Chicken and Mittens by Adam Lehrhaupt, and I hope that you had even more fun making our super snowy projects together. So just a quick reminder that if you do have any questions, if you run into any trouble, or if you want to share your projects, like maybe your mitten garland, which I'm imagining has turned out so fantastically, you can get in touch with us at the KidZone email address. So that's KIDZONE @itpld.org, the same email that sent you the link to the video. please get in touch. We are so happy to answer any questions, and we're also really excited to see photos of your projects, because I come up with what I think is a really cool way to finish it, but the rest of you are so imaginative and creative, just like Zoe in our story, and I know that your take on our projects is going to be fantastic. So I'd love to see it. And then I do want to give a couple quick reminders that we do have some closures coming up. So December 24th and 25th, the library will be closed. We're only going to be open for a half day on December 31st, so that's going to be 9 to 1 open, and then close the rest of the day. And then the library is also closed on January 1st. So if you want to come in to grab some books, some movies, video games, whatever you need, make sure that you do it on a day when the library is open. And you can always double check the Indian Trails Library website if you need to confirm that. And then we do have our K1 book parties coming back in January. So we are still going to be meeting virtually. It's going to be the same format because that seems to work really well for everybody. And then we're going to keep going from January to May. We'll take a little break over the summer, and then we'll come back in September as a fully fledged book club, which I'm really excited about. So again, I hope you enjoyed our book. We've got some really awesome ones to look forward to, so I hope you'll be able to come back and join me for our next program coming up in January. I hope that you stay warm and you stay safe. Have a wonderful winter holiday, whichever one you choose to celebrate with your family. Have a fantastic new year, and I hope you come and visit us at the library sometime soon. So bye for now, friends. Take care.